Hey there, welcome to Chapter 2 of the Big Girl School Book Club. If you missed Chapter 1, no big deal. Just go to IGTV and all of the lessons will be there in order. We are studying Roberto Valenzuela's Picture Perfect Practice, and last week we did geometry, and this week we are working on balance. So he does a great job in just a few pages explaining what balance is in photography. He talks about balancing with objects. So which object is the most dominant? This is one question to ask. Which object is the brightest? Which object has the most dominant vertical lines? And which object makes a pattern? And then which object has the most contrast? And then he also talks about balancing with space. So the concept of balance is basically think of a weight. You don't want your photograph to feel too heavy on one side or too heavy on the other. You want to have it feel balanced throughout, and your eye's going to pick up on it if it's not completely balanced. So make sure to read the chapter, do the assignment that he asks you to do, because his really focus on looking and seeing and observing, and then my assignment will focus on taking what you've learned and putting it into a photo and then sharing it with the group. We have 2 weeks for each chapter, so don't worry if you get behind. You can always catch up and post later, but we wanted to give you enough time to read the chapter, which is usually between 4 to 10 pages, no more. There's lots of picture examples, and give you time to do the kind of observation and looking at your own photos and seeing how it comes to play, looking at the environment and seeing if you can see it in the environment. I highly recommend looking at TV, video, movie trailers, cinematography in movies. They do a great job of bringing all of this to light, and you're going to start noticing it now that you've read this chapter. It's going to be a lot more obvious to you, and then you can start incorporating it into your own work. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull up my screen now and share it with you, and we'll talk through some of the different balance ways I've used balance in my photos, and then I'm going to show you a few photos that I don't really love and how we can change the balance to improve it. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at some of my photos, and we'll walk through the balance in the photos that I'm going to show you. All right, so this is a senior picture that I took, and you can see that it's kind of split down the middle, but it doesn't seem too off on the right because it's balanced by the reflection on the left. And one of the things that he points out is there should be equal distance, approximately, between the right edge of the photo and the left edge of the photo. It shouldn't be really off. So you can see that not only is it split down the middle, and then you have equal sides weighted, you also have a very similar distance between the edge of the photo. It doesn't have to be exact, but it's really good not to have like a lot of space on one side and a little bit of space on the other. So I think this is a good example of balance. Now here, we've got a little bit of geometry going on here. You can see from corner to corner, we've created 2 rectangles. So I've got the, this is through a window, and I've got the brightly colored light fixture here. And then I've got more blank space on this side. So it's kind of evenly weighted between the lights here and the empty space on the bottom. So it feels very symmetrical and evenly weighted. Now here's a little bit different. So now I was at a wedding reception, and we've got this large tree right here, and you can see that there's a large crowd of people on this side. So kind of the people balance the large tree, so it doesn't feel like the tree's kind of falling over to the right. The people on the left are pulling it down, and it feels very it feels like good composition, very well balanced. Whereas I think if the people weren't there, it would feel very heavy to the right, if that makes sense. And then you can see kind of the edges are pretty similar in distance. Now here I've got another senior, and you can see that she's sort of over on the right, and she's kind of a vertical line here, and then we've got the vertical line of the tree. And you can see the distance from her shoulder to the edge of the photograph and the distance from the edge of the tree to the edge of the photograph are very similar. Again, they don't have to be perfect, but the tree and the girl balance each other both top to bottom and side to side. So you can see that it feels very evenly weighted. And then the chair goes across, and it's very much on the rule of thirds. So if I were to go here and turn on, you can see she's right on the rule of thirds, the chair's right on the rule of thirds, and the composition feels very, very balanced. Now here's an interesting one. We've got my little nephew going to the bus stop, and we've got the bus, which, since it's got the lines that are coming bigger, so the school bus is bigger on this side and it's smaller on this side. So balancing this larger area of the school bus, you can see that we're balanced with the 3 boys right here. So this feels very balanced to this, whereas it might feel a little bit right heavy without the kids sort of pulling the weight down on the left. And again, we've got a similar distance between the edges here and the edges of the kids. You might even take this a little bit further and come in here and crop. So you can see I've already cropped it in. I could crop it in just a little bit further to make the edges, the edge to edge here, more similar to the edge to edge here to give it even more balance. Now you can see here I've got another senior, and so you've got her face right here that's balanced kind of in the bottom left by the larger blurred out rose. So I put her into the kind of back into the rose bushes, and I had some in front, and I used a very shallow depth of field so that I could blur everything in front of her and everything behind her. And so not only do you have her balanced with the negative space on the left, but you also have her face balanced with the larger rose diagonally. So I thought that was another good example, slightly different than what you normally see. So now let's go to, So now let's go to this one, not that one, sorry. So you can see we've got a lot of vertical lines here. So I've got Cora, my cousin. She is really in the middle of these vertical lines, and you can see this is kind of also a geometry because we've got a lot of parallel lines. But we've got this distance from her shoulder to the edge, and we also have this distance here from the last repeating pole to the edge. So we've got her, and then she's balanced by all of the repeating pillars on her left. So it doesn't feel super right heavy. We've got something on this side to balance it out. Now in this one, we're looking at bright. What's the brightest area of the photo? So we've got the bright in the upper right of the lighthouse, but we also have the bright from the restaurant down in the bottom corner reflecting into the water. So we've got the 2 brightest areas of the photo balancing each other on a diagonal. And then we have a little bit darker and a little bit darker sky. So it feels very like almost like 2 triangles, and then the light balances each other. So it doesn't feel heavy either way. It feels very, the composition feels very good to me. Now here, this was in one of the cathedrals, I think in Vienna maybe, I can't remember. But here we've got the main character that's carved, which is amazing, carved in here, balanced by some of the smaller figures in the bottom right. And one thing that I could probably do in this photo is I could go into develop here, and I could go into my crop, and look, I've already cropped it. So I could straighten out my lines a little bit. So this line feels a little bit crooked. I could even go into one of the cool things that they have in Lightroom. They've got lens corrections, and they've also got, what's it called? It's called transform, and basically it makes your vertical lines vertical, and it makes your horizontal lines horizontal. And you can see it changes the perspective over here, and then you can just constrain the crop And then it makes everything feel more upright. Instead of when I'm looking up, it kind of gives some distortion. It gets rid of some of that distortion. And here I can come in here and kind of adjust it. So you can see here's my main guy that I'm trying to show, and he's balanced off over here by this guy. A little bit smaller, but the weight feels pretty even. And then I've also used the rule of thirds when I've cropped it. So I've got him on the main axis here, I've got the little carving here, and then I've got the kind of the guy I'm offsetting over here. Now here I've got 3 girls. And you can see that I've got the darker background, the lighter background, and I can even come down over here and take down the highlights a little bit because it's pretty bright over on the right. But the 2 girls balance out the 1 girl and the dark background. So it doesn't feel heavy on either side. It feels very well spaced out. And you can see I've got about this much distance between the girl on the right and the edge of the photograph and the girl on the left. It's very similar. I could even go in here and just nudge that in a little bit to make that a little bit smaller. But again, it doesn't feel, if she wasn't there on the left, it might feel very right heavy. And if they weren't here on the right, it might feel very left heavy. So these kind of all balance each other out. And it's an odd number, which is nice and creates a nice triangle composition. Now here is an adorable photo. And we've got some pretty good, the cute little doggy is balanced out by the boots here. We've got a nice little angled composition, the brown. Now one thing that might be able to be improved based on what we learned in this is maybe cropping it a little bit differently. We can go in here and maybe change the ratio so that we can get the edges a little bit closer. So you can see we've got the legs on one axis, we've got the dog on one axis, and then we've made this from here to here and from here to here a little bit more similar. So if we kind of move that around, we've got that a little bit more similar so that it feels very balanced both on the diagonal and on the parallel, if that makes sense. Now here's a photo that's, I think, not very good, but I thought it would be a good example of how you can take a not very good photo and make it a little bit better. So, you know, brightness and exposure aside, this photo is very right heavy for one. It feels everything's going on the right. There's nothing going on the left. The horizon is right in the middle and it's not even straight. So just by going in here and cropping, I'm going to go ahead and change the crop. I'm going to straighten up my horizon just a little bit, and I'm going to pull in here and get rid of the post that's on the side. I'm going to pull my horizon down to my lower thirds here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit OK. And again, this isn't an award-winning photo, but you can see just by changing the crop, it doesn't feel as heavy to the right because we've added more of the boat to the left. We've put it on the thirds. We've straightened the horizon. We've cropped in a lot of the dead space on the upper and lower. So if I hit reset, that's what it looked like before. And if I hit undo reset, that's what it looks like now. So don't underestimate just going in and cropping your photo. Even if you didn't take it and it wasn't perfect, you can improve that balance just by going in and cropping and using some of the principles that you've used. I crop all the time. I probably, as you've seen, I've cropped almost every photo that I've shown you here. Almost none of it's the original crop. I'm not very good at getting it right in camera, which I need to work on, but hey, as long as there's a crop tool, we're good. Okay, here's another photo that's like, it's okay, it's nothing great, but watch how you can change just by changing the composition or changing the crop. Because first of all, we've got Cameron over here. She's all the way off the edge of the photo. And then we have space between the cat. So already we feel very lopsided. So if I just go in here, I'm going to change this to an 8x10 crop. And I'm going to zoom in on the kitty cat. And you can see just by doing that, I've got a much more pleasing photo. I can even go in here and sort of brighten up brighten up this bottom corner to balance out the brightness that's up in here with the window. But I've got the kitty cat, you can see on the rule of thirds, the head is right on the rule of thirds. We've got the little apple that's, you know, almost on the rule of thirds here. We've eliminated Cameron because she is just sort of randomly in the picture. We've gotten rid of the random stuff on the left side of the picture. And now we've got a cat that's looking at the laptop. Again, not an award-winning picture, but when you look at how it started and how it ended, just by cropping, balancing, and getting rid of distractions, really improved the picture overall. So when you're looking at your photos, think, you know, how can I do that? How can I get rid of distractions? How can I balance it out? How can I improve the geometry? Just by using the crop tool. Now here's a photo that I like, and I actually use this for geometry, but the more I looked at it, the more I don't like the balance at all on this photo. I think that it's very left heavy. There's a lot of bright on this side, and she's right in the middle. What I wish I would have done is I wish I would have taken a step to the right and turned a little bit so that I would have brought more of that back fence into the frame. It would have turned the back fence so that it's more over on this side of the frame. And she would have still been centered, but it would have brought a little bit more of this back fence in to provide more balance. Because right now we've got dark in the front, light in the back, she's right in the middle, and it cuts right down the middle, and it feels very off balance to me. So one thing that I could do, and you can see I've already cropped it, I could come in here, and the amount that you can crop is going to depend on how high resolution your camera is. I have a pretty high resolution camera, so I can go in here and crop in pretty far, and it's not going to kill the picture. But if you have more of an entry-level camera, you may not be able to do this. So just know that there are restrictions on your camera as to how much you can crop in. But if I go like that, even that helps it. It feels more evenly distributed top to bottom, and it feels more evenly distributed left to right, just by getting rid of some of this dark fence in the front and some of this grass in the back. So if I go, if I undo that and just show you where it started, this is where it started. Cropped in some more. I cropped in some more. So I think that is much better than where it started. So play with your crops. Try doing landscape. Try doing vertical. See how you can't get rid of some of that unwanted elements in the photo to improve your photo. Because you might have a great photo, it just might not be composed very well. And that was my last example. So let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Share your pictures in either on Instagram and hashtag them, The Big Girl School. On IGTV, go ahead and save the video so that you can go back and reference it if you have any questions. You can also join our Facebook community. The link is in the Instagram bio, and we are going to actually have some live book club meetings, maybe once a month on Zoom, so we can talk about the pictures, share our pictures, ask questions, maybe even drink some wine like a real book club. Try to build some community. So let me know how it goes. I can't wait to see your pictures. I know I'm learning a lot. I think this particular project is good for any level. If you're a beginner, it's really going to elevate your pictures. If you're an advanced photographer, it's going to remind you of all the ways in which you can create unique and different pictures and make them better. So let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you again soon for Chapter 3.